Hello and welcome back to the classes of Mastering Biology Easily. So here I am again to explain the next life process, which is transportation in plants and animals. So for this lecture, the topic remains transportation in plants. As the name suggests, what do you mean by the word transportation? The word transportation means movement of substances. Movement of substances from one part of the body to the other part, whether it is a plant body or an animal body, because we are talking about this word, which is transportation. And the word transportation itself means movement. So in case of plants and animals, the movement of substances have to take place. All right, before I move to plants and animals, first let us classify organisms to be unicellular or multicellular. When organisms are unicellular, one-celled, yes, then the process of diffusion helps in transportation. The process of diffusion helps in transportation. And when the organism is multicellular, it will have different organs and organ systems for transportation. All right. So we can classify multicellular organisms into two categories, which are plants and animals. So whenever an organism is unicellular, the process of transportation is completed by diffusion. And when the organism is multicellular, in that case, it will have different organs and organ systems. Or you can even say they can have tissues, as in case of plants. All right. So multicellular organisms are classified further into plants and animals. Now let us come back to our original concept, which I started with, transportation in plants. How does transport of substances take place in case of plant body? Yes. Now, in your lower class, you must have studied that plants have two conducting tissues. And can you tell me the name of the conducting tissues? What are the two conducting tissues which help in the conduction of nutrients? The two conducting tissues in case of plants are xylem and phloem. The two conducting tissues in case of plants are xylem and phloem. These are the conducting tissues. All right. Now, xylem and phloem both have four components. Xylem has tracheids, vessels, then xylem parenchyma and xylem fibers, which are sclerenchymatous in nature. And then again, phloem will have four components. The first component of phloem is the sieve tubes. They have companion cells. Then they have phloem parenchyma and then the phloem fiber. So these are the four components. Now, out of these four, xylem parenchyma is the only living component in case of xylem. All the other three components are dead. Clear? And in case of phloem, the sieve tubes, the companion cells, and the phloem parenchyma, these three are living. Only the phloem fibers are the dead components. All right. That means overall we can say that xylem is mainly a dead tissue and phloem is mainly a living tissue. Let us have a look at the diagram here, and you can see both the components. This shows the xylem and this shows the phloem. When I say xylem, the main role of xylem is conduction of water along with minerals. And the main work or the main job of phloem is conduction of food along with some amino acids, along with the conduction of plant hormones. All right. So this is the work the two components are doing. These are the conducting tissues. Now when I talk about xylem, xylem will always conduct water and minerals, children. And where is water and minerals present for the plant? They are present in the soil. That means the conduction of water and mineral will always happen in the upward direction. Whereas conduction of food or transportation of food, you know, food is synthesized here in the leaves. So the transport of food can happen in both the direction. So conduction through xylem is unidirectional and conduction through phloem is bidirectional. Conduction of what happens through xylem, water and minerals, and conduction of food, amino acids and plant hormones happen through phloem. These are two main differences, the directions. The other thing is that in case of xylem, there are no end walls in between. These end walls are not present. That means xylem is one hollow channel or a pipe for conduction of water and minerals. Whereas in case of phloem, you can see in the diagram also, a perforated plate is present. And this perforated plate is called as the sieve plate. Perforated means it has pores. All right. And this plate is called the sieve plate, which helps in the conduction of food, and that conduction of food is bidirectional. So these are some differences between xylem and phloem that you should be knowing. Now, let us come specifically to how does conduction of water and minerals happen. Conduction of water and minerals through xylem. Conduction of water and minerals happen through xylem. All right. Now, you know children, water when moves from roots to upper parts of the plant will carry minerals dissolved in it. That is the dissolved form. And therefore, this process is known as ascent of sap. Sap word means water having dissolved minerals. Ascent means downward to upward movement, the direction. So conduction of water and minerals through xylem is known as ascent of sap. This is a unidirectional process. Now what happens during this process? During this process, as you can see in the figure, the plant is going to take up water and minerals here from the soil, because water and minerals are present here, right? Now, this water which is present in between the soil particles, has minerals also. These mineral ions, these are actively taken up. Uptake of ions is an active process. Why this is an active process? Because it involves ATP consumption. This process is known active because it involves ATP consumption. And why is this required? Because the minerals and ions are already present in more amount in the root cells as compared to the soil particles. But you know children, plants need more minerals, and so they spend energy and active movement of ions take place from the soil particles in the root hair. Now what is going to happen? There occurs a change in the osmotic concentration. This osmotic concentration changes, which means that now ions are more inside the cell and less outside. As a result, water osmotically moves from outside to inside. This results in the uptake of water osmotically. That means by the process of osmosis, these water molecules happen to enter inside the root hairs. Alright, and then this water and ions keep on moving through this channel, entering finally into the xylem and reach to the leaves where it is required. So this is how transportation of water happens in case of plants. Alright, बहुत easy है. There is nothing much to keep in mind except two things: active uptake of ions and passive uptake of water by osmosis. तो जैसे ही सॉइल पार्टिकल के बीच में से आयंस का एक्टिव अपटेक प्लांट करेगा, ऑस्मोटिक कॉन्सेंट्रेशन वेरी करेगा, कॉन्सेंट्रेशन ग्रेडियंट क्रिएट होगा, एंड एज अ रिजल्ट water from the soil osmotically moves inside the root hair, and then it crosses all the cells of the root and enter into this continuous water column. All right, but this alone is not responsible for maintaining the continuity of the waters. All right, to create a continuous water column, there are two forces which are required. So, forces which are required is the root pressure and the transpirational pull. है क्या ये दोनों? Root pressure. Root pressure is that pressure which is applied by the cells of the root to push the water forward in the plant. That means from the soil towards the leaves in the upward direction. All right. Now this root pressure is created as a result of metabolic activities which are happening in the root cell. This is sufficient for transportation. This is sufficient for transportation. Where? This is sufficient for transportation in small plants. What about tall plants? If the root pressure is the alone driving force to help the water reach the top, then just imagine how long will it take for the last leaf of the plant to receive water. Alright, therefore, it is an important process for small plants, and yes, of course, tall plants do need this, but only at night. Why only at night? Why not during the day? Because during the day, transpirational pull is the main driving force. What is this transpirational pull? Simple question, what is transpiration? Transpiration is the loss of water from these small pores which are present on the surface of leaves that you call as stomata. And the loss of water takes place in the form of water vapors, right? Now, this is practically possible only during the day because the heat of the sun is responsible for transpiration to happen. If there is no sunlight, there is no heat which causes this evaporation, which causes this phenomenon called transpiration. So, the water cannot be lifted up. Now, see how it happens. So, transpirational pull is said to be the main driving force. Now, let us say this is a root and the stem, and see, the water has entered the root here by the process I explained in the very beginning, that how water is absorbed. Alright. Now, once the absorption of water has taken place, it has to be conducted. For this conduction, let us say this is the leaf, and from the stomata, the water molecule is lost in the environment. Here at the back is the space where water molecules were present. But now these water molecules have come out through stomata. As a result, a space is created. This vacuum causes a suction from the neighboring cells. This water from the surrounding cells are again lost in this space. I will explain this to you again. Try and understand this part. This is very important. The water is getting lost through transpiration. Alright. Now, the cells which are present here, through stomata, the water is lost by transpiration. So, the space behind the stomata, if you remember when we drew the internal structure of the leaf, there was a space behind the stomata. This becomes empty. When this becomes empty, because of the difference in the concentration gradient from the surrounding cell, the water is lost again in the space, refilling it. And this causes a pull, and this pull creates a continuous water column in the xylem, and the water is lost through transpiration pull. So, what are the two main factors responsible for transpiration? Yes, the two main factors responsible for transpiration are the root pressure and the transpirational pull. But in case of tall trees, transpirational pull is the main driving force during daytime, and at night it needs the root pressure. Whereas in short plants and small plants, the root pressure alone can help in the conduction of water. So, the mechanism that you have understood before, that was here, this is absorption of water, how water enters the root here, how uptake of water takes place. And then how it is conducted, that is this process which is happening under the control of two driving forces. One is the transpirational pull and other is the root pressure. For transpirational pull, I can give you one more example which we often use in a daily life. That is when you have a juice in the glass and you have a straw. When you place the straw, just think that does the juice automatically keep on rising in the straw, or do you create that suck? And once you create the suck, the juice starts to lift up in the straw. Similarly, a suction is required here, and that suction pressure is created by the suction pull. Is created by whom? By the process called transpiration. Alright, so this suction pull is created by this transpiration. Therefore, this helps in conduction of water and creates a continuous water column throughout the length of the plant. I hope I am clear with transportation and conduction in plants about water and minerals. Let us move to the next part, which is conduction of food or transportation of food. When we say transportation of food, first thing you need to know, this is completely active process. That is, ATP is utilized. The utilization of ATP takes place here. Then, secondly, this will happen through phloem, and it is bidirectional in nature. This is bidirectional in nature. That means in both the direction, the conduction of food takes place from lower part to the upper part and from upside to downside. All right. So both the directions conduction will happen. Fourth important thing that you need to keep in mind is process is known as translocation of food. All right. So how will you define this process? The process by which green plants transport their food from one part of the body, which is the source. Here involved is the source to the sink mechanism. Source is the place where synthesis of food takes place, that is the leaves, and sink is the place where it has to be stored, that is the storage organs. The source is the site of synthesis and sink is the place where it has to be stored. Now let's look here at the diagram that you can see. Now when I say conduction of food, xylem and phloem are present like this way. When you have the phloem in the center and it is surrounded by xylem. All right. So there are two pipes one covering the other like this. If I have to draw a TS of this, it will be like this. So this is xylem and this is phloem, right? The cells are present close to one another. Now see, the synthesis of food takes place here in the form of glucose. Here the synthesis takes place as glucose. But for it to be transported, it is converted into sucrose. This sucrose from leaf cell, which is the source cell, is loaded into the neighboring phloem cell, which is the sieve tube. All right. And for this loading, the ATP is required. So ATP is required for loading of sucrose. This ATP is required for loading of sucrose. Now, once the loading has been done, the number of solutes in the cell will increase as compared to the neighboring cells. So, the water from xylem starts moving into the phloem to normalize the concentration gradient. But you know, there will be large content in that cell as compared to the neighboring cell. So, this sucrose molecule is pushed forward into the neighboring cell, into the next cell. Again, the sucrose molecules enter the next cell. All right. The osmotic concentration, the concentration gradient is going to change. That is, there is more solute in the cell too. As a result, water from xylem will enter into this phloem cell, increasing the osmotic concentration of the cell. As a result of this pressure, sucrose is further pushed into the neighboring cell, and this happens in both the direction. As we know, conduction of food is bidirectional. Clear till here? Ultimately, sucrose, this process will keep on happening till sucrose reaches the last cell, which is the storage cell. In this case, here storage cell is the root cell, and so that is the sink cell. This is the sink cell where the storage of food has to take place, and that is called the sink. Therefore, we said that translocation of food happens from source to sink. It is a source to sink mechanism where synthesis of food takes place in the leaf and it is stored in any other part. You know where leaves store food. It could be a root, it could be a stem, it could be leaves, it could be fruits. Wherever the food has to be stored, it will reach to that last place, and that last cell will be the sink. So, this is the process of translocation of food, and along with food, amino acids and the plant hormones are also conducted via phloem. So, I hope the source to sink mechanism is clear. The process is known as translocation of food. Now, very important thing that I want you to know, which I refer to as the ABC of plants. A is the synthesized food. The food which is synthesized is glucose. Plants synthesize food in the form of glucose. B is the transporting food, the transporting form. So, the transported food is in the form of sucrose. And ultimately, where it has to be stored, that's the third form, is the starch. So, the stored form of food is starch, the transported form of food is sucrose, and the synthesized form is glucose. Please remember these three words as ABC for plants. Synthesis, transported, and ultimately they are stored in the sink cell. They are stored here in the sink cell, which could be any storage organ of plants. All right. I hope I am clear with all your concepts of transportation in plants. In the next lecture, we will meet with the next topic, which is transportation in animals. Till then, keep revising. Do comment me in the comment box what else topics you want me to explain in a easier way. Otherwise, keep revising and keep learning. Thank you.